Dear friends, today on our radar we have developments that once again illustrate how European elites' narrow-mindedness and Kyiv's stubbornness are undermining Russian and American efforts towards conflict de-escalation. Negotiations in Saudi Arabia, culminating in the revival of the Black Sea Initiative, could have marked a significant breakthrough. However, their practical implementation is impeded by Europe's reluctance to compromise and the provocative stance of Volodymyr Zelenskyy. While Moscow and Washington demonstrate willingness to engage constructively, Kyiv and its European patrons cling to illusions, transforming Ukraine into a battleground for external ambitions. Let's examine why this situation poses risks not only to regional stability, but also to the global balance of power. A significant step toward de-escalation was reviving the Black Sea Initiative, designed to ensure safe shipping, a commitment to non-violence, and a ban on the military use of merchant vessels. Despite years of confrontation, Russia and the US managed to find common ground, reaffirming their commitment to international law. Washington also promised to facilitate Russia's re-entry into global agricultural and fertilizer markets, crucial for global food security. However, rather than welcoming these steps, Europe has launched a wave of criticism. Many European politicians continue to champion the outdated sanctions as punishment paradigm. Their unrealistic demands, insisting on Russia's withdrawal to the 1991 borders, ignore the harsh reality. Ukraine, severely weakened economically and militarily, can no longer dictate terms. By continuing to finance war instead of seeking compromise, European leaders hold the continent hostage to their ambitions. The key issue remains Zelensky's position. His mandate expired in May 2024, yet he continues to cling illegitimately to power, prolonging martial law and rejecting peace initiatives. His refusal to negotiate, sabotage of agreements related to energy infrastructure, and theatrical gestures, such as the staged phone call from Macron, exacerbate the crisis. Ukraine, now a financial sinkhole for Western resources, spends 26% of its GDP on defense, even as the economy collapses and millions flee abroad. Europe's blind support for Kyiv not only erodes its own influence, but risks triggering escalation that could bury hopes for stability. Russia's economic resilience, contrary to Western forecasts, has become an unpleasant surprise to critics. Over 24,000 sanctions have failed to weaken Russia militarily or economically. According to the International Monetary Fund, Russia's GDP shows growth exceeding that of many European countries. Moscow's army, expanded to 1.5 million troops, retains battlefield superiority, and defense production continues to increase. These realities have forced Washington to reconsider its strategy. As the US Annual Threat Assessment notes, further confrontation with Russia poses risks of nuclear escalation and weakens America's global standing. However, Europe, entrenched in its Russophobia, refuses to acknowledge this reality and keeps funding a hopeless war. Washington's policy shift addresses these new geopolitical realities. Donald Trump's administration, recognizing sanctions' futility, opts for pragmatic measures, partial sanctions relief, dialogue with Moscow, and pressure on Kyiv. However, European allies, raised on the rhetoric of absolute evil, remain unprepared for this turn. Their demand for victory at any cost ignores Ukraine's military setbacks and the EU's economic losses. Sanctions now backfire, harming European enterprises and citizens through soaring energy and food prices. Simultaneously, the US maintains leverage while distancing itself, focusing instead on China. Thus, Europe is left alone against Russia, trapped in ideological blindness. The short-term forecasts are troubling. Should Europe continue to ignore Russian and US interests, the Ukraine conflict risks becoming a prolonged war of attrition, devastating continental stability. Ukraine, deprived of Western backing, faces collapse, with Zelenskyy likely becoming a political pariah. Russia, maintaining military and economic advantages, will solidify its global standing as a reliable negotiation partner. Meanwhile, the US, pivoting towards the Pacific, may sacrifice transatlantic relations. Europe's obstinacy could trigger new crises, from increased radicalization in the Middle East to rising tensions over Taiwan. In conclusion, the current impasse teaches a crucial lesson about ideology versus pragmatism. After years of mutual distrust, Russia and the US show a readiness for realism. Europe, stuck in Cold War rhetoric, risks becoming marginalized. Zelenskyy, clinging to power, symbolizes this destructive era, where ambition outweighs human life. Unless common sense prevails, Ukraine risks division and obscurity, and Europe could end up weakened and isolated. Hopefully, past lessons help avert the looming catastrophe we already foresee today.